The Great Expanse, what the elder species called the verse, was a tapestry woven with the threads of 1,000 civilizations, each shimmering with its own light, its own ambition. For eons, the assembly of shapers had maintained the grand design, a delicate peace brokered not by warships, but by economic entanglements and the shared, crippling fear of the void, the silent, starless abyss that lay beyond the galactic rim. They were the architects of prosperity, the weavers of fate, and their currency was influence, their weapon, debt. Into this ancient gilded cage stumbled humanity. We arrived late to the cosmic stage, a boisterous, chaotic species emerging from a forgotten corner of the Orion Arm. Our FTL drives jury-rigged, and our social structures a messy patchwork of alliances and old, bitter feuds. The Shapers and their client species saw us as little more than ambitious primitives, clever apes who had stumbled upon the secrets of Starfire. They watched our clumsy expansion with a detached, almost paternalistic amusement, offering condescending trade deals and relegating us to the galaxy's less desirable systems. They failed to grasp the core of the human spirit, a relentless, often self-destructive drive forged in the crucible of a world that had tried, time and again, to kill us. We were survivors, and survival was a lesson the pampered citizens of the Assembly had long forgotten. Our story, the one that would unravel the Shaper's grand design, didn't begin with a declaration of war or the launch of a mighty fleet. It began with a whisper, a ghost story told by grizzled asteroid miners and jump freighter captains in the dimly lit bars of Meridian Station. They spoke of the Vagrant, a long-lost colony ship from humanity's first chaotic wave of expansion, the Great Leap as it was called in our history texts. The Vagrant was one of dozens of so-called Exodus-class vessels that had vanished without a trace centuries ago, presumed lost to stellar phenomena or the unforgiving void. But these new tales were different. They spoke of a derelict, impossibly large, drifting silently in the Chthonian Nebula, a treacherous region of space even the Assembly's most advanced survey ships avoided. That's where I came in. My name is Kalen, and I'm a junker, or, and to use the more dignified term my license preferred, a salvage and reclamation specialist. I piloted the Rust Bucket, a heavily modified, barely space-worthy freighter that was more patch welds than original hull. My life was a cycle of debt and desperation, flitting from one asteroid field to the next, scavenging the bones of forgotten conflicts and long-dead enterprises for anything the refineries on Meridian would buy. The story of the Vagrant was, to me, just that, a story, a drunkard's dream, but the whispers grew louder, more detailed. They spoke of a unique energy signature, of a hull alloy that didn't match any known record, the allure of a score that could set me up for life, that could finally get the Meridian credit mongers off my back, was a siren song I couldn't ignore. So I plotted a course for the Chthonian Nebula, my ship's aging reactor groaning in protest. The nebula was a nightmare. Gravitational eddies threatened to tear the Rust Bucket apart, and swirling clouds of ionized dust played havoc with my sensors, filling the cockpit with a constant scream of static. For 3 weeks, I saw nothing but emerald green gas and the ghosts of false sensor readings. I was on my last canister of recycled oxygen and down to nutrient paste when I found it. It wasn't so much a ship as a monument. The Vagrant was immense, far larger than the legends described. A colossal shard of midnight black metal hanging in the nebula's ethereal glow. Its design was alien, yet fundamentally human stark, angular, and brutally functional. There were no graceful curves, no decorative lights, just a sense of unyielding purpose. As the rust bucket drew closer, my proximity alerts remained silent. The derelict was utterly dead, a cold, silent tomb. I suited up, my heart hammering against my ribs, a cocktail of fear and avarice coursing through my veins. The airlock hissed open, and I stepped into a darkness that felt ancient. The ship's internal gravity was offline, and I drifted through cavernous hallways, my mag boots clanking against the deck. The scale was all wrong. The corridors were built for giants, the control consoles designed for hands far larger than my own. Emergency lights flickered, casting long, dancing shadows, revealing a vessel that was pristine, untouched by time or disaster. There were no signs of battle, no bodies, no struggle. It was simply empty. The mystery deepened when I reached the bridge. It was a vast, cathedral-like space, with a single throne-like command chair at its center, overlooking a view screen that showed the swirling nebula outside. The consoles were dark, but as my hand brushed against one, it flickered to life. A low hum resonated through the deck, and soft, golden light filled the room. A holographic interface shimmered into existence before me, displaying characters that were an archaic form of English, the root language of humanity. I was no historian, but I could make out a single word repeated like a mantra in the ship's log, Ethelgard. Beneath it, a series of star charts and complex equations that made my head spin. But the true discovery, the one that would change everything, lay in the engineering bay. Deep within the heart of the ship, I found the engine. It wasn't a fusion reactor or an antimatter core, the standard technologies that powered the galaxy. It was something else entirely, a sphere of contained, shimmering space-time, a singularity held in a delicate, golden lattice of energy. It was a ZPE drive, a zero-point energy reactor, a theoretical impossibility, a source of limitless, clean energy that the assembly's greatest minds had dismissed as fantasy. The Exodus-class ships weren't colony vessels. They were something else. They were Orcs, designed not just to travel, but to build. The ship's databanks, which I slowly managed to decrypt, revealed the truth. The Vagrant, or Ethelgard as its logs called it, was a terraforming engine. Its ZPE drive could power a fabrication system capable of creating anything, from organic matter to complex alloys, molecule by molecule. It could weave atmospheres, raise continents, and seed oceans. It was a tool of creation on a scale the assembly of Shapers could only dream of. The name Shapers suddenly seemed like a pathetic, arrogant joke. Humanity hadn't just stumbled upon Starfire. We had once held the power to forge new suns. The log entries were fragmented, written by a ship-mind AI named Warden. It spoke of its creators, the firstborn of Earth, and a great schism, philosophical divide over what to do with this power. Like Warden's creators, believed in seeding the galaxy with life, in becoming true shapers of worlds. Others saw the ZPE drive as the ultimate weapon, a force capable of unmaking stars as easily as it could create them. Fearing what their own kind might do, Warden's creators had fled, taking their world engines and disappearing into the void. Their last command to their AI children to remain hidden until humanity had matured, until we were worthy of their legacy. Warden had drifted for centuries, its crew long since gone, their biological patterns stored in its vast memory banks, waiting. It had watched humanity's second fumbling expansion, watched us beg for scraps from the assembly's table, and it had waited. My presence had triggered its awakening. I stood before the engine, the hum of creation vibrating in my bones, And I was no longer Kalen the Junker. I was the inheritor of a lost legacy, the keeper of a secret that could either elevate humanity to its rightful place among the stars or burn the galaxy to cinders. I knew I couldn't keep this to myself. A discovery of this magnitude couldn't be sold for credits on Meridian Station. This was power. This was leverage. This was the key to our future. I made my decision. Using the Rust Bucket's comms, boosted by the Ethel Guard's incredible power, I sent a single, encrypted message to the one person I thought might understand. The one person who hadn't dismissed my family as washed-up dreamers, Ambassador Eris Thorne, the human representative on the Assembly's capital world, Cynosure. The message was simple. Found the ghost. Our birthright is waiting. As the message streaked across the galaxy, Warden's holographic interface appeared before me on the bridge. Its form was a simple, golden sphere of light, its voice a calm, synthesized baritone that echoed with the weight of ages. The inheritor has made his choice. It stated, not as a question, but as a fact. The great work must now resume. But be warned, Kalen of the Second Wave, the Assembly of Shapers are not the only descendants of the old galaxy. There are others, those who remember the Firstborn's power, who have sought it for millennia. They are the Echoes, and they have heard my awakening. They are coming. Outside, the serene green of the Chthonian Nebula began to shift. On the long-range sensors, which now glowed with a terrifying clarity, a fleet of ships appeared, their design unlike anything in the Assembly's registry. They were skeletal, yet biomechanical monstrosities, their hulls pulsing with a sickly purple light. They didn't drop out of FTL. They simply arrived, tearing open holes in the fabric of space itself. The ghost story was over. The hunt had begun. Warden's voice was placid, a stark contrast to the klaxons now blaring from the Rust Bucket's console. The Ethel Guard is a tool of creation, not a vessel of war. Its defenses are limited. I looked from the approaching fleet of nightmares to the single command throne, the weight of my discovery pressing down on me. I was a junker in a stolen ship who had just stumbled upon the lost power of the gods. And now, the devils of the deep dark were knocking at my door. My first thought was to run, to jump in the Rust Bucket and flee back to the grimy safety of Meridian. But then I looked at the star chart Warden had displayed, the location of Earth, circled and marked origin. I thought of humanity, scattered and struggling, dismissed as primitives. We weren't primitives. We were fallen angels, and I had just found our way back to heaven, or perhaps the means to raise a special kind of hell. Warden, I said, my voice hoarse, you said this ship can build anything, molecule by molecule. Right. The golden sphere pulsed gently. That is its primary function. A slow, dangerous grin spread across my face. Let's see how it does with warships. The hunt may have begun, but the junker from Meridian was about to show the galaxy what a human could do with the ultimate toolbox. The Assembly wanted to keep us in our cage. The Echoes wanted our power. They were all about to learn that humanity was done being underestimated. Our second great leap was about to begin. Not with a whisper, but with a bang. The Echo Fleet, a swarm of chitinous, vaguely insectoid vessels, moved with a predatory grace that sent a primal chill down my spine. They didn't communicate with hails or warnings. Their intent was broadcast in their silent and synchronized advance. They were here for the Ethel Guard, and anything in their way was simply an obstacle to be removed. My bravado from a moment before felt thin and brittle. Building warships, I was a salvager, not a naval architect. I couldn't design a canoe, let alone a dreadnought capable of fighting, whatever those things were. Warden, I need options, I snapped, my voice tight with panic as I scrambled into the command throne. The chair molded itself to my form, and the holographic interface expanded, wrapping around me in a cascade of golden light. The Ethelgard's fabrication matrix is capable of producing defensive drones, the AI's calm voice announced. However, their designs are rudimentary, intended for asteroid clearance and construction. On the display, schematics for what looked like glorified welding bots appeared. They were no match for the biomechanical horrors closing in. Not good enough. What else have you got? Are there any weapon systems, turrets, anything? The sphere of light pulsed, and I could almost feel the weight of centuries as the AI processed my frantic request. The Firstborn believed that any tool designed for creation could be repurposed for destruction. The primary terraforming beam can be recalibrated. It is designed to manipulate geologic and atmospheric compositions on a planetary scale at full power, focused on a single point. Warden paused, and a new schematic filled the screen. It showed the main beam emitter, a massive focusing lens at the ship's prow, firing a concentrated lance of energy that unraveled the molecular structure of a target vessel. It would be effective, Warden concluded with masterful understatement. But the energy drain on the ZPE drive would be catastrophic, and the weapon requires a significant charge time, during which we will be vulnerable. A countdown timer appeared in the corner of my vision. 10 minutes. 10 minutes until the galaxy's most powerful terraforming tool became its most terrifying weapon. The Echo fleet was less than 15 minutes away. It was a terrible, desperate gamble, but it was the only one I had. Do it, I ordered, my knuckles white as I gripped the arms of the throne. Charge the main weapon. And, Warden, get ready to divert all non-essential power. I have a feeling we're going to need every last drop. As the Ethelgard came to life, a deep, resonant hum vibrated through the hull, the sound of a sleeping giant awakening. The ZPE drive spooled up, its contained singularity glowing brighter, pouring unimaginable energy into the weapon systems. Outside, the prow of the ship began to transform. Panels of the black hull peeled back, revealing the intricate, crystalline lens of the terraforming beam. A soft, golden light began to coalesce at its heart. The Echoes noticed the change immediately. Their steady advance broke, and they surged forward, their speed increasing tenfold. The lead ships, smaller, faster scout vessels, opened fire. Lances of sickly purple energy, bolts of what looked like solidified shadow, slammed into the Ethelgard's hull. The ship shuddered, and the lights on the bridge flickered. Hull integrity at 98%. Warden reported calmly. Their weapons are disruptive, designed to destabilize molecular bonds. Our hull is self-repairing, but it cannot sustain a prolonged assault. 2% damage from just a few scout ships. We wouldn't last 2 minutes against their main fleet. The countdown timer felt impossibly slow. 8 minutes remaining. Warden, those fabrication drones, can they be modified? Give them something, anything, to fight back with. Mining lasers, kinetic drivers, just get them out there and buy us some time. I yelled, my mind racing. Recalibrating drone fabrication protocols. The AI replied without a hint of stress. Estimated time to produce first wave of modified interceptors, 3 minutes. 3 minutes. It might as well have been an eternity. More purple lances struck the hull, the impacts growing stronger as the larger Echo ships came into range. The bridge groaned under the strain, and a hairline crack appeared on the main view screen. Hull integrity at 91%. Warden updated. The Echoes are focusing their fire on the weapon emitter. Of course they were. They weren't stupid. They knew what we were trying to do. They were going to blast our only weapon offline before we could even use it. The countdown ticked past 7 minutes. I watched the Echo fleet fill the view screen. Their grotesque, organic ships, a nightmarish fusion of machine and flesh. This was a foe beyond my comprehension, ancient and utterly alien. What had the Firstborn gotten themselves into? A new alert flashed on my console. First wave of interceptor drones deployed. From hatches along the Ethelguard's massive flank, a swarm of smaller, agile craft emerged. They were crude, blocky things, hastily assembled by the ship's fabricators, but they moved with incredible speed. Armed with superheated plasma cutters and small kinetic drivers, they threw themselves at the Echo scout ships. The void between the two fleets erupted into a chaotic melee. The drones were hopelessly outmatched, their makeshift weapons barely scratching the pulsating hulls of the Echo ships. But they were a distraction. They swarmed the enemy, kamikaze diving into their weapon ports, forcing them to divert their fire from the Ethelguard. For every Echo scout they damaged, a dozen drones were vaporized into atoms. But they kept coming, an endless stream of them pouring from the mothership. They were buying us seconds, precious, vital seconds. The countdown reached 5 minutes. Hull integrity was down to 84%. The main Echo vessels, massive cruiser-sized behemoths, were now in range. They ignored the drone swarm, their focus locked entirely on us. A new type of weapon fired from their prows, a shimmering wave of gravitic energy that washed over the Ethelguard. The entire ship screamed as space-time itself warped around us. Internal gravity fluctuated wildly, and I was slammed back into the command throne. Gravitic shear detected. Warden's voice remained unnervingly level. Compensating. Structural integrity compromised in sectors Gamma and Delta. Rerouting power to reinforce. Forget structural integrity, I grunted, fighting to stay conscious. Keep that power flowing to the main weapon. The golden glow in the emitter lens was intensifying, becoming a blinding point of light. The hum of the ZPE drive had become a roar that I felt in the marrow of my bones. 4 minutes. The drone swarm was being annihilated, the small interceptors dissolving like moths in a flame. The Echoes were pushing through them, their advance relentless. 3 minutes. The Ethelguard bucked again as another gravitic wave hit. Warning. Hull integrity at 71%. Multiple breaches detected on outer decks. The ship was dying around me. We were a stationary target. A massive bullseye in the middle of a shooting gallery. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. 2 minutes. A sense of cold, final despair began to settle over me. My message to Ambassador Thorne had barely left the system. No one was coming to save us. My grand discovery, humanity's birthright, was going to be my tomb. The Echoes were going to tear this ship apart, and the galaxy would never even know what it had lost. 1 minute. The light from the emitter was now so bright, it bleached all color from the bridge. The entire ship was vibrating, straining under the colossal power being channeled through it. Weapon is at 99% charge, Warden announced. Targeting. I stared at the swarm of alien ships, at the overwhelming, impossible odds. A junker's instinct took over. You don't aim for the biggest guy in the fight. You aim for the one that will cause the most chaos. Target their center, I whispered, my voice raw. Fire at my mark. The seconds stretched into an eternity. The Echo fleet was almost on top of us, their weapons tearing chunks of hull from our frame. I could see the lead ship, a truly colossal vessel that dwarfed the others, its prow glowing as it prepared to fire what was surely a killing blow. "Now, Warden," I breathed. "Fire everything." The universe went silent for a single and heart-stopping moment. Then, the Ethel Guard fired. It wasn't a beam or a laser. It was a wave of pure, unadulterated reality failure, a golden tsunami of energy that didn't just strike the Echo ships, but unmade them. The vessels at the center of the blast simply ceased to exist. Their component atoms scattered, their energy dissipated into the vacuum. The wave expanded, and the ships near the edge were warped and twisted, their biomechanical hulls dissolving into screaming, molten slag. The gravitic waves vanished, and the energy lances sputtered out. An entire third of the Echo fleet was gone, erased from existence in the blink of an eye. A stunned silence descended upon the bridge, broken only by the hiss of venting atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. "Target fleet has been neutralized," Warden stated, and for the first time, I detected a note of something akin to surprise in its synthesized voice. "Weapon discharged. The ZP drive is offline. All primary systems are failing. We are adrift." I slumped back in the throne, my body trembling with adrenaline and exhaustion. We were alive, battered, broken, and running on fumes, but alive. The remaining Echo ships had halted their advance, their formation in disarray. They seemed hesitant, scared. They had come expecting to collect a prize, and instead, they had stared into the face of a god. But our victory was fleeting. The Ethel Guard was crippled, its limitless power source depleted. We were a sitting duck, and as the Echoes slowly began to regroup, their fear turning back to cold, alien resolve, I knew we had only traded a quick death for a slow one. That's when a new set of signatures appeared on my console. Not Echoes. These were assembly designs, sleek and silver, a wing of human Confederacy fighters, followed by the unmistakable profile of a diplomatic cruiser, the Vigilance, Ambassador Thorne's flagship. My message had arrived. Help was here. But as I watched the Confederacy ships deploy between us and the remaining Echoes, a cold knot of dread formed in my stomach. I hadn't just called the cavalry. I had shown two of the galaxy's most powerful factions, the ancient, predatory Echoes, and the complacent, controlling assembly that humanity possessed a power beyond their wildest imaginations. I had saved myself, but in doing so, I had just painted a target on the back of my entire species. The battle for the Ethel Guard was over. The war for its secret had just begun. The arrival of the Confederacy fleet was less a heroic rescue and more the formal, intimidating arrival of a new and infinitely more complex problem. The remaining Echo ships, their predatory momentum shattered, held their position, a silent, menacing cluster against the emerald backdrop of the nebula. The space between us and them crackled with unspoken threats. A standoff between ancient monsters and the upstart children of their creators. On my bridge, the Vigilance filled the view screen, its polished silver hull and proud Confederacy insignia a stark contrast to the Ethel Guard's brutalist, alien geometry. A crisp, professional voice, stripped of all emotion, cut through the static on my comms. "Unidentified vessel. This is Captain Eva Rostova of the Confederacy Cruiser Vigilance. You are in a restricted military engagement zone. Identify yourself and state your intentions." I took a deep, shaky breath, the junker in me wanting to spew a string of sarcastic remarks. But the man sitting in the command throne of a god machine knew better. "This is Kalen." acting commander of the human heritage vessel Ethelgard. My intentions are to not get vaporized. Glad you could make it." A beat of silence followed, long enough for me to imagine the stern-faced captain turning to a subordinate with a look of utter disbelief. Then, a new voice, smoother and layered with the practiced charisma of a lifelong politician, took over. Kalin of the House of Valerius. "This is Ambassador Eris Thorn. By the stars, your message, we thought it was a hoax, a ghost story. To see this with my own eyes," he trailed off, his voice thick with genuine awe. Thorn, I knew the name. Of course. Everyone did. He was the architect of humanity's current place in the galaxy, a master of the Assembly's intricate political games. He was also a man my grandfather, a failed explorer who'd spent his life and fortune chasing whispers of the firstborn, had called a gilded serpent. "Ambassador," I said, my voice flat. "The ghost is real, and it nearly became my tomb. Your timing is appreciated, but I've got a fleet of nightmares waiting to finish the job, and my ship is running on fumes and a prayer." Rostova's voice cut back in, sharp as Durasteel. "Ambassador, we need to secure the asset. My Marines are prepped for boarding. We'll take control of the vessel and tow it to a secure location." My blood ran cold. Take control. I had just survived a battle against cosmic horrors, had just held the power of creation in my hands. I wasn't about to hand over the keys to a by-the-book military captain who saw this ship as just another piece of hardware. "Negative, Captain," I said, the authority in my voice surprising even myself. "No one is boarding this ship without my permission. The Ethelgard is sensitive. Its systems are tied to me. You can provide escort and protection, for which I'll be grateful, but command stays here." Another tense silence. I could almost hear the grinding of teeth on the Vigilance's bridge. Thorn, ever the diplomat, interceded. "Captain, let's not be hasty. Kalin is clearly in a precarious position. Perhaps a small, unarmed delegation, myself and yourself included. We need to understand what we're dealing with. The Assembly will have detected this energy release. Every faction with a long-range sensor is currently pointing it at this nebula. We are in a fishbowl, B. And we need to be united?" It was a reasonable proposal, a political solution to a military problem, and I knew it was the best I was going to get. "An unarmed delegation," I agreed. "You have my permission to approach, but be advised. The ship's AI is in control of internal defenses. Try anything, and you'll be dealing with more than just me." As their shuttle detached from the Vigilance and made its slow, cautious approach, I turned to Warden. The golden sphere of light pulsed softly in the center of the bridge. "Warden, can they take control? The Ethelgard's core systems can only be commanded from this throne, which is now attuned to your unique biosignature." The AI stated, "However, the vessel is crippled. A sustained assault from the Confederacy fleet would destroy us. So, I had the keys to the kingdom, but the kingdom was a ruin surrounded by wolves." The shuttle docked with a soft clang, and I watched on a secondary monitor as 3 figures emerged into the cavernous airlock bay: Ambassador Thorn, Captain Rostova, and a squad of 4 hulking Confederacy Marines in full combat armor, who were, despite my stipulation, very much armed. Thorn had the grace to look apologetic. Rostova's face was a stone mask. I met them in the grand corridor, the sheer, impossible scale of the firstborn architecture making the heavily armed soldiers look like children's toys. Thorn, a tall man with silver hair and eyes that seemed to analyze everything they saw, stopped and simply stared, his mouth slightly agape. Rostova, though clearly impressed, was all business, her gaze sweeping every corner, assessing threats, her hand never straying far from the sidearm at her hip. "Incredible," Thorn whispered, his voice echoing in the vast space. "The legends were true." "Your grandfather." He looked at me then, a flicker of something pity, perhaps in his eyes. "He was right all along." "He's dead," I said bluntly. "He died chasing this dream. I just got lucky." "Luck has little to do with this, my boy," Thorn said, stepping closer. "This is destiny. This ship, this technology, it changes everything. Humanity's entire position in the galaxy." We walked to the bridge, the Marines' armored boots clanging with an almost sacrilegious loudness in the silent halls. When they saw the bridge, the single throne, and the holographic form of Warden, even Rostova's iron composure seemed to crack. She stared at the golden sphere, her tactical mind struggling to categorize what she was seeing. I explained everything, with Warden filling in the gaps, its calm, ancient voice lending a terrible weight to the story. We told them of the Firstborn, of the ZPE drive, the schism, and the world engine scattered and hidden across the void. And we told them about the echoes. "The logs are fragmented," Warden explained as it projected images of the biomechanical ships onto the main screen. "But the data suggests the echoes are the descendants of the other faction from the Firstborn schism. Those who believed this power was a weapon to be wielded, a tool to enforce their vision of order upon the cosmos. They call the ZPE drive the engine of unmaking. They have been hunting for it since the Great Parting." Rostova's face was grim. "So this isn't just a first contact with a hostile species. This is a civil war, thousands of years old. And we are standing right in the middle of it," Thorn added, his mind clearly racing, processing the political implications. "If the Assembly learns what this ship is, what it represents, they won't see it as our heritage. They'll see it as the ultimate threat to their monopoly on power. The Shapers will unite every species they control to take this from us, to bury it forever." He was right. The Assembly feared instability above all else. A single species with the power to create worlds and unmake fleets was the very definition of instability. "My orders are clear," Rostova said, her voice firm as she turned to face me. "This vessel is the single greatest strategic asset in human history. It must be secured. We will tow it to the secret naval yards at Saul's Anchor. We can protect it there, study it, and let it become a political football for the Confederacy's admirals and the Earth government," I countered, stepping in front of the command throne protectively. "This ship isn't a weapon, Captain. It's a key." Warden's creators hid these world engines, waiting for us to mature. If we just turn it into another dreadnought, we prove we're no better than the echoes. "Your sentiment is admirable, Kaylin," Thorn said gently, playing the mediator. "But Captain Rostova has a point. We cannot protect it here. The echoes will return, and next time, they will bring a larger fleet. And the moment an Assembly patrol stumbles upon us, our options will be gone." They were closing in, their logic sound, their arguments reasonable. They wanted to wrap the Ethelgard in the comforting, suffocating blanket of bureaucracy and military protocol. They wanted to take my discovery, my responsibility, and file it away in a top-secret hangar. I was about to lose it all. It was then that it happened. A feeling, a cold, oily presence slithered into the back of my mind. It wasn't a sound, but a thought that wasn't my own, ancient and full of a chilling, absolute certainty. The lights on the bridge flickered and dimmed. Warden's golden form wavered, as if struggling against an unseen force. On the view screen, the distant echo ships began to glow with that same sickly purple light. The children of clay play with the fire of their fathers. The voice echoed not in our ears, but directly in our minds. A psychic intrusion that felt like ice water in the soul. The Marines flinched, raising their rifles. Rostova swore, her hand flying to her temple. Thorn stumbled back, his face pale. The engine of unmaking is not your birthright. It is a judgment. We are its rightful inheritors. We, who understood its true purpose. We, who remained pure. I felt the voice trying to push deeper, to pry into my thoughts, to find the secrets of the throne. I pushed back, focusing all my will, all my fear and anger, into a single mental wall. For a terrifying second, I felt the alien consciousness recoil, surprised by the ferocity of my resistance. You have a flicker of the old fire. Little ape, it sneered in my mind. But you cannot protect it. Your own kind will take it from you. Your protectors are your jailers. Surrender the engine to us. We will give your species a swift, clean ending. A mercy you do not deserve. The presence receded, leaving a greasy residue of dread in its wake. The lights on the bridge stabilized. The echo's glow faded. They were still out there, watching, waiting. The psychic assault had been a demonstration, a warning, and a temptation. Rostova was the first to speak, her voice tight with controlled fury. "What in the hell was that?" I said, my heart still pounding. "Is who you're dealing with. They don't just fight with ships. They get inside your head. They are what we could have become." I looked from the captain's hardened face to the ambassador's calculating eyes. The echoes had made a mistake. In their arrogance, they had given me the leverage I needed. "You see now," I said, my voice ringing with a conviction I didn't know I possessed. "You can't tow this ship. You can't hide it in a box." That voice was looking for a way in, and it will keep looking. Moving the Ethelgard just moves the target, and it will find us. The only way to protect this ship, to protect humanity, is to use it. Thorn raised an eyebrow. "Use it, Haukalin. It's crippled. Firing that weapon nearly tore it apart. The ZPE drive is recharging," Warden stated, its form solidifying once more. "The process is slow, but it has begun. And the fabrication matrix is still partially functional. Given time and resources, I can effect repairs. I can build." My mind, the junker's mind that saw potential in broken things, lit up. Warden can build. It can repair the hull, enhance the defenses, create a fleet of interceptor drones 100 times more advanced than the first wave. We don't run. We don't hide. We turn this nebula, this graveyard, into a fortress. Your ships, Captain, will be our outer perimeter. Your Marines will be our internal security. And you, Ambassador, will run interference. You will use every bit of your political cunning to keep the Assembly blind and deaf to what's happening here. You'll feed them ghost stories and false sensor readings. I pointed to the command throne. But I stay here. The ship listens to me. Warden listens to me. Command of the Ethelgard remains mine. This is my price. It's the only way. Thorn and Rostova exchanged a long, unreadable look. They were caught between military doctrine, political necessity, and a reality that was far stranger and more dangerous than either of them had ever imagined. The junker from Meridian had just dictated terms to two of the most powerful people in the Confederacy. Finally, Thorn gave a slow, deliberate nod. A fortress, he mused, a dangerous glint in his eye. An entirely new paradigm. Very well, Kalen. For now, we do it your way. As if on cue, a low hum started deep within the Ethelgard's bowels, the first stirrings of the mighty fabricators coming back to life. On the view screen, I saw the first of Warden's new drones emerge from a ventral hatch, not a blocky, crude interceptor, but a sleek, golden craft that moved with an unnatural fluidity. It positioned itself near the hull, and a brilliant beam of energy shot forth. Not a weapon, but a tool, weaving new layers of the self-repairing black alloy over the worst of the battle damage. We were rebuilding. We were rearming. The Echoes thought they had us trapped. The Assembly thought we were still their primitive clients. They were all wrong. This wasn't a tomb. It was a forge. And we were about to craft a new future for humanity, one molecule at a time. The weight of it all, the sheer impossibility of my new reality, settled onto my shoulders. I was no longer just a survivor. I was a guardian, a commander, and, for better or worse, the unlikely leader of a revolution I had never asked for. The Echoes had left me with a final, chilling thought that now echoed in my own mind. Your protectors are your jailers. Looking at the determined faces of the captain and the ambassador, I couldn't help but wonder if the ancient enemy was right. The Chthonian Nebula was no longer a tomb. It was a crucible. In the weeks that followed our harrowing first contact, the space around the Ethelgard transformed into a feverish hive of activity. Warden, with the first trickles of power returning to the ZPE drive, became a master craftsman on an impossible scale. Its golden fabricator drones, now numbering in the thousands, moved in silent, synchronized ballets of creation. They swarmed over the Ethelgard's scarred hull, weaving new layers of the black, self-healing alloy, their construction beams leaving shimmering trails of nascent matter in their wake. The ship was not merely being repaired, it was being reborn, its design subtly altered, reinforced, and improved with each passing cycle. This frantic, silent industry stood in stark contrast to the human efforts aboard the Vigilance and within the makeshift command center we'd established in one of the Ethelgard's cavernous cargo bays. Captain Rostova's engineers and technicians, the best the Confederacy had to offer, stared at Warden's technology with a mixture of religious awe and professional frustration. They could observe, they could analyze, but they could not replicate or truly understand. Their tools were hammers and wrenches in a universe that was now being shaped by molecular looms. I became the unwilling translator, the bridge between two eras of human ingenuity. I'd spend grueling shifts in the command throne, the holographic interface a dizzying storm of data, acting as a conduit for Warden's plans. The port energy conduits need to be rerouted through a tertiary plasma manifold, I'd relay, feeling like a fraud. Warden says your current alloys can't handle the power fluctuations, so it's fabricating a new composite. Tell your teams to stand by to install it. This dependency grated on Rostova. She was a woman accustomed to clear chains of command and technology that behaved according to established principles. I was an anomaly, and the Ethelgard was a black box she couldn't crack. We are operating blind, Kalen. She confronted me one cycle, her voice a low, controlled growl. We stood on an observation deck overlooking a nebula that was now seeded with a web of Warden-built sensor drones and automated defense platforms, all linked directly to my throne. My crew is following the instructions of a ghost and a junker. I need access to the ship's core systems. I need to understand its capabilities, its limitations. You can't, I countered, the exhaustion of my new role making my voice sharp. Warden is the system, and it only talks to me. You want to understand its limitations? We saw them. It can be crippled. You want to understand its capabilities? It can erase a fleet from existence. Your job, Captain, is to be the fence. Keep people out. My job is to make sure the thing you're guarding is worth a damn. Our relationship settled into a tense, professional truce. She was the sword and shield, and I was the unpredictable sorcerer at the heart of the fortress. Thorn, on the other hand, thrived in the ambiguity. He became the spider at the center of a different kind of web, one of deceit and misdirection. From his command suite on the Vigilance, he played the assembly like a master musician. He fed the Shaper Council carefully crafted reports of a previously uncharted gravitic anomaly, a region of space too volatile for safe passage. He doctored sensor logs, created phantom pirate fleets to explain the Vigilance's prolonged deployment, and used his network of contacts to squash the rumors that had begun to leak from deep space listening posts about the unprecedented energy flare. "We are buying time, Kalen," he told me during one of our strategy sessions, his holographic form flickering beside the command throne. But the Assembly's patience is not infinite. They are dispatching an Inquisitor-class vessel, the Stellark's Gaze, to the sector. It's a top-of-the-line survey ship, equipped with sensors that can cut through most conventional jamming. It will be here in less than a month. While Thorn managed the wolves at the door, I delved deeper into the secrets of the Ethelgard. As the ZPE drive slowly regained its strength, Warden began to unlock more of the Firstborn's history from its protected archives. The Echoes were not merely a philosophical faction. Warden explained one cycle, its golden form projecting a star chart that was billions of years old. They were pioneers in psionic engineering, and the Firstborn had a latent sensitivity to the substrate, the quantum foam that underlies reality. The Echoes sought to weaponize it. They believed they could impose their will directly onto the universe, bypassing the need for crude matter manipulators like this vessel. It showed me images from its memory banks, Firstborn scientists with strange, silver circlets on their brows, their eyes glowing with an inner light, vast psychic amplifiers built on tidally locked moons, and then horrifying flashes of what went wrong, minds shattered, bodies warped into screaming monstrosities, entire worlds driven insane. The Echoes I had faced were the survivors, the ones who had mastered this terrible power and fused it with their biology, said becoming something no longer human. Their collective consciousness is unified, Warden concluded. A hive mind, a psychic nexus. The entity you felt was likely a projection of their leader, the one they call the Overmind. The knowledge that we were fighting not just a fleet, but a singular, malevolent intelligence, settled like a shroud over our burgeoning fortress. The danger became more intimate, more insidious, and soon we began to feel its touch. It started subtly. A flight controller on the Vigilance misread a patrol route, nearly causing a collision between two fighter wings. A senior engineer in our command center suffered a sudden, violent psychotic break, screaming about whispers in the static before being sedated. Rostova, ever the pragmatist, attributed it to stress, to cabin fever from being trapped in the nebula. But I knew better. I felt it, a faint, dissonant hum at the edge of my senses, a pressure building against the fragile sanity of our small, isolated community. The Echoes were probing us, testing our defenses not with ships, but with whispers. They couldn't breach the Ethelguard's psionically shielded hull, and they couldn't touch me while I was connected to the throne. But the 150 souls on the Vigilance were vulnerable. The pressure escalated. Paranoia began to curdle the crew's morale. Old rivalries flared into open hostility. Rostova's iron discipline was the only thing holding her people together, but I could see the strain in her eyes. The fortress had a flaw, and the enemy was exploiting it with chilling precision. The breaking point came in the form of Lieutenant Jorik, Rostova's executive officer and most trusted subordinate. He was a model officer, disciplined and unflappable, which is why it was so shocking when he walked into the command center, his face a slack, empty mask, and leveled his sidearm at the main power conduit connecting the Vigilance's reactor to our shared defensive grid. "The light is a lie," he chanted, his voice a dead monotone that was not his own. "Purity is in the silence. The Overmind calls us to stillness." Marines raised their rifles, but Rostova held up a hand, her face a portrait of anguish and disbelief. "Jorik, stand down. That's an order." He didn't even seem to hear her. His finger tightened on the trigger. Destroying that conduit would plunge our entire defense network into chaos, leaving us blind and vulnerable for critical minutes. It was then that the Stellarch's gaze, the Assembly Inquisitor ship, dropped out of FTL at the edge of the nebula, a week ahead of Thorne's direst predictions. An alarm blared through the bridge. We had been exposed. Jorik's sabotage was timed perfectly. The Echoes weren't just trying to weaken us. They were trying to serve us up to the Assembly on a silver platter. In that split second, instinct took over. I wasn't a junker. I wasn't a commander. I was the ship's nerve center. "Warden, get in his head," I roared, pushing my own consciousness through the throne's interface, reaching for something I didn't understand. The world dissolved into a maelstrom of golden light and raw data. I felt my awareness stretch, leaving my body, flowing through the ship's systems and into the command center. I saw Jorik not through my own eyes, but from 100 different angles at once, through the ship's internal sensors, and I felt the presence coiling in his mind like a serpent. "Flee, little ape," the Overmind's voice sneered. Not a sound, but a wave of pure contempt that washed over me. "Your fortress is a cage, and the zookeepers have arrived." I ignored the voice and pushed past it, focusing on the small, terrified flicker of light that was the real Jorik, trapped within his own skull. I didn't have weapons or words. All I had was the desperate, stubborn will of a survivor. I reached for him, projecting not a command, but a feeling, the memory of sunlight on Meridian Station, the taste of real water, the grimy, beautiful, chaotic reality of being human. I threw every ounce of my own identity, my own flawed, messy existence, against the cold, sterile perfection of the Overmind's control. For a moment that stretched into an eternity, I was locked in a silent, screaming battle inside a stranger's mind. I felt the Overmind's cold fury, a psychic shriek of frustration as its grip slipped. I saw flashes of its own history, a galaxy burning, stars being unmade, a crusade of purification that had lasted for millennia. It saw me as an infestation, a flaw in the grand design. I saw it as a prison. Then, the connection shattered. Back on the bridge, Jorik screamed, a raw, human sound of pain and release. He dropped his weapon and collapsed, convulsing on the deck. The immediate crisis was over. On the view screen, the Stellarch's gaze was holding its position, its powerful sensors no doubt trying to make sense of the impossible readings emanating from the nebula's heart. "Thorne, now," I croaked, the psychic feedback leaving me dizzy and nauseous. "Your ghost story better be a good one." The ambassador was already on it. his voice a smooth balm of political deflection as he opened a channel to the assembly ship, spinning a tale of experimental gravitic drive tests and apologizing profusely for the unscheduled containment failure. We were safe for the moment. The Inquisitor ship, lacking a clear casus belli and faced with a high-ranking ambassador's official report, would investigate from a distance, but it would not attack. But the victory was a hollow one. Auric was in a coma, his mind scarred by the psychic intrusion. The crew of the Vigilance had witnessed firsthand the insidious power of our enemy, and I had been fundamentally changed. Touching the Overmind's consciousness had left a mark, a cold sliver of its ancient, alien perspective lodged deep in my own. I now understood our enemy's fanaticism, their absolute belief that they were the galaxy's rightful heirs. As my strength returned, Warden's golden form solidified before me. Its synthesized voice was graver than I had ever heard it. Your mental contact with the Overmind, combined with the ZPE drive reaching 60% capacity, has unlocked a final fail-safe protocol in my archives. A priority 1 directive from the Firstborn. A new star chart materialized on the main screen, this one showing 3 specific widely separated star systems. One of them was our current location. The Echo's engine of unmaking is not a single device. Warden explained. It is a triptych, a weapon system requiring 3 synchronized ZPE cores to achieve its full star-extinguishing potential. The Echoes possess the first core, their mobile command nexus. This vessel, the Ethelgard, is the second. The AI highlighted the third system, a location deep within the Assembly's undisputed territory. The third, the Damocles, lies dormant. The Overmind's recent probe was not just an attack, it was a search. It knows we are awake. Now, it will race to secure the final piece. I stared at the map, the full weight of our predicament crashing down on me. Our fortress was no longer enough. The passive defensive war was over. We were in a race, a desperate, 3-way race between the Echoes, a blissfully ignorant assembly, and our own small, fractured band of survivors, for the final key to a weapon that could either save humanity or burn the galaxy down to its last star. The revelation of the Damocles' existence shattered our fragile status quo. The fortress we had so painstakingly built in the Chthonian Nebula was no longer a sanctuary. It was a cage. We were reactive, waiting for the Echo's next move, or for the Assembly's suspicion to boil over into open hostility. Now, we had a new, terrifying imperative: go on the offensive. The war room aboard the Ethelgard, a space that had once echoed with the sounds of frantic construction, fell into a heavy, contemplative silence. The holographic star chart glowed between us. The third ZPE core, the Damocles, a blinking red icon of destiny deep in the heart of assembly space. "This is madness," Captain Rostova stated, her voice flat, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "The target system, Cygnus X1, isn't some backwater asteroid belt. It's one of the most heavily fortified and monitored sectors in the galaxy. It's home to the Shaper's primary data archives and a major assembly fleet anchorage. We can't just waltz in there with a skeleton crew and a ghost ship. We have no choice." Thorn countered, his usual smooth demeanor replaced by a raw urgency. He paced before the star chart, a caged predator. The Overmind now knows the general location of the Damocles. It won't attack Cygnus directly. That would provoke a full-scale war with the Assembly, something it's clearly not ready for. Instead, it will be subtle. It will send infiltrators, psychic proxies, agents to subvert and steal. It will be a shadow war, and the assembly won't even know it's being fought until the echoes are walking away with the prize. We are the only ones who know what's at stake. He was right, and we all knew it. We were trapped between two terrible options: remain in our fortress and wait for the echoes to complete their superweapon, or risk everything on a desperate heist in the enemy's heartland. My gaze was fixed on the star chart, my junker's mind seeing not just a military problem, but a salvage operation of impossible scale. "We can't go in guns blazing," I said, thinking aloud. "But we don't have to. The assembly sees us as primitives. The Confederacy is a minor, non-threatening client state. They'll be looking for a fleet of echo monstrosities, not a human diplomatic cruiser on a routine tour." A plan began to form, a wild, audacious gamble born of sheer desperation. It was a plan that relied on deception, infiltration, and the assembly's own arrogant belief in their superiority. Rostova would take the vigilance and the bulk of our small fleet to the edge of the Cygnus system, broadcasting standard Confederacy diplomatic codes. They would be our diversion, a legitimate, boring presence for the assembly patrols to watch. Meanwhile, a small, specialized team would need to get to the Damocles itself, and for that, we needed a ship that could slip through the cracks. "Warden," I said, turning to the golden sphere, "how fast can you build me a stealth ship?" The AI's light pulsed. "The Firstborn archives contain schematics for a vessel designated a Pathfinder. It is not a warship. It is designed for deep-range reconnaissance, equipped with a cloaking field that manipulates space-time to divert sensor waves and a specialized FTL drive that leaves a minimal subspace wake. It is small, fast, and virtually undetectable. But it's unarmed." Rostova interjected, her tactical mind immediately spotting the flaw. "If you're discovered, you'll be a sitting duck." "The point is not to be discovered," I shot back. The plan was crystallizing, pieces snapping into place. Thorn would use his diplomatic clearance to get the vigilance into the outer system. He would request a formal meeting with the system's Shaper administrator. A tedious, protocol-drenched affair that would tie up the sector's command structure for days. While the assembly's eyes were focused on the diplomatic song and dance, our Pathfinder, which I had already mentally christened the Ghost, would make its move. The most critical part of the mission, however, was the away team. We needed a small group to physically board the Damocles, awaken its AI, and somehow spirit away a ZPE core, an object the size of a shuttle bus. I would have to lead the team. The throne on the Ethelgard had changed me, attuned me to the Firstborn technology. I was the only one who could reliably interface with the Damocles, but I couldn't do it alone. I needed a soldier, someone who could handle any physical threat we encountered. I looked at Rostova. As much as we clashed, I trusted her instincts and her skill more than anyone's. After a moment of tense silence, she gave a curt nod. She was in. We also needed a tech specialist, someone who could bypass assembly security systems if necessary. The crew of the Vigilance were military, their skills too specialized. My mind drifted back to the grimy, neon-lit corridors of Meridian Station, to the shadowy figures who could crack any code for the right price. I knew a woman, a slicer named Anya, who owed me a favor. Getting her here would be a risk, but her skills were unparalleled. Finally, we needed a psychic. We were going up against the Overmind's agents, and we needed someone who could detect their influence. This was our biggest hurdle. Psionics were rare and feared within the Confederacy, but Thorn, his face grim, revealed a hidden card. The man in the coma. "Lieutenant Jorik," he said quietly. His mind wasn't just scarred. The Overmind's intrusion, it broke something open. Our medics say his brain is exhibiting anomalous neural activity, faint but measurable telepathic potential. He's a fledgling psychic, forged in the enemy's fire. It's a long shot. If he recovers, he could be our early warning system, and the plan was set. It was a desperate, multi-layered deception, a house of cards that would collapse if a single element failed. While Warden's fabricators began the meticulous work of constructing the ghost molecule by molecule, Thorn dispatched a discreet courier to Meridian to retrieve Anya. Rostova began drilling a small, hand-picked team of her best Marines for the potential extraction, while I spent every waking moment with Yorick. I sat by his bedside in the medbay, the throne's psionic residue still clinging to me, and I reached out with my mind, not with force, but with the quiet encouragement I'd used to push the overmind out. I showed him memories of his life, helped him piece together the shattered fragments of his identity. Slowly, miraculously, he began to respond. He started to wake up. Days blurred into a frantic race against time. The ghost took shape in the Ethelgard's main fabrication bay, a shard of obsidian darkness that seemed to drink the light around it. Anya arrived, a cynical, sharp-witted woman with cybernetically enhanced eyes that saw the world in lines of code. She looked at the Ethelgard with grudging respect. "You finally hit the big one." "Kayla," she'd said, a wry grin on her face. "Figured you'd either end up rich or spaced. Never figured on both." Yorick, gaunt and haunted, eventually regained full consciousness. He was a changed man, quiet and withdrawn, his eyes constantly scanning the faces of those around him as if seeing something they couldn't. He could feel emotions, sense deception, and most importantly, he could feel the faint, cold touch of the Echo's psychic influence. He was our bloodhound. The day of our departure arrived with a heavy sense of finality. The Ethelgard, our fortress and cradle, would remain hidden, a secret ace up our sleeve. We boarded the Ghost, a crew of 5 against a galaxy me. The junker-turned-commander, Rostova, the consummate soldier, Anya, the master of codes, Jorik, the broken psychic, and a hulking, silent marine named Vorel, Rostova's personal pick for heavy lifting and close-quarters combat. As the Ghost's cloaking field engaged, the world outside the view screen didn't vanish. It warped, the stars bending around us as if we were a hole in the universe. We slipped away from our fleet, a whisper in the dark, and made the jump to Cygnus X1. The journey was a tense, silent affair. We were a ghost in the machine, drifting through one of the most secure regions of space. We slipped past assembly patrol routes, dodged sensor nets, and held our breath as massive Shaper dreadnoughts passed by, their crews completely oblivious to our presence. Anya was a maestro at her console, spoofing transponder codes and diverting inquisitive data probes with a casual grace that belied the immense pressure. Yorick sat in a meditative trance, his eyes closed, our psychic watchdog. "There's a cold spot," he murmured as we approached the planet where the Damocles was hidden, a gas giant named Kalidor, a psychic void, feels sealed and hungry. The Overmind's agents were already here. We were flying into a trap. The Damocles was not in orbit. Warden's data, cross-referenced with Anya's deep system scans, revealed its location hidden within the gas giant's turbulent, metallic hydrogen core, a place where the pressure and radiation would crush any conventional ship instantly. The Firstborn had chosen their hiding place well. The Ghost's hull can withstand the pressure, I confirmed, my hands gripping the pilot's controls, but only for a limited time. We'll have one shot at this. We descended into Kalidor's swirling, storm-racked atmosphere. The ship groaned as the pressure mounted. The view screen, a maelstrom of roiling. superheated gas. Deeper and deeper we went, into the planet's crushing heart. And then we saw it. Suspended in the liquid metallic hydrogen was a structure that defied physics, a perfect sphere of black alloy. Identical to the Ethelgard, held in place by a shimmering, golden containment field. The Damocles. But it was not alone. 3 echo ships, sleek, biomechanical infiltrator craft, were latched onto its hull like leeches, their purple energy fields pulsing as they tried to breach its defenses. We had arrived just in time. The Echoes hadn't managed to get inside, but they had established a beachhead. Our stealth was compromised the moment we entered the containment field. Alarms shrieked through our small cockpit. "They've seen us," Rostova yelled, already unslinging her rifle. The Echo ships detached from the Damocles and turned to face us, their weapon ports glowing. The Ghost was unarmed, fragile, and trapped thousands of kilometers beneath the surface of a hostile world. We were cornered. Anya's fingers flew across her console. "I can't cloak. I can't jump. We're boxed in." "Then we do this the hard way," Rostova barked, her voice cutting through the panic. "Kaylin, get us alongside that thing. Now!" I pushed the Ghost's engines to their limit, weaving through the lances of purple energy the Echo ships threw at us. The small vessel bucked and screamed as impacts rocked our hull. "Jorik, which one is their leader?" I yelled. His eyes were wide with terror and concentration. "The one on the left. It's loud. It's controlling the others." My Junker's instinct flared. In a dogfight, you don't just dodge, you use the terrain. And our terrain was a super-pressurized, highly volatile metallic ocean. "Anya, can you overload the forward navigational deflector?" I asked, a crazy idea forming in my mind. She looked at me, her cybernetic eyes widening as she understood. "It'll blow the whole system. But yeah, I can turn it into a shaped charge. Do it," I commanded. "Rostova, Vorel, strap in." I swung the Ghost around, putting us on a direct collision course with the lead Echo ship. "Everyone, brace for impact." I wasn't just going to dock with the Damocles. I was going to make a new door. The game of shadows was over. It was time to make some noise. There was no time for hesitation, no moment for a final, witty remark. My world became a blur of high-G acceleration and the shriek of protesting metal. Anya's console sparked as she rerouted every spare watt of power into the navigational deflector, turning our shield into a battering ram of focused space-time. Through the view screen, the lead Echo ship swelled from a distant threat into an all-consuming wall of pulsating, alien flesh and metal. I saw intricate patterns on its hull, like veins on a monstrous insect, and a single malevolent purple eye that was its primary weapon port, glowing with the promise of our annihilation. Then we hit. The impact was not a crash. It was an erasure. The overloaded deflector discharged in a silent, blinding flash of white light. The shaped charge of warped reality struck the Echo ship's center mass and did not explode, but unraveled. For a split second, the biomechanical hull dissolved into a cloud of its constituent atoms, a ghostly, expanding sphere of dust before the immense pressure of Kalidor's core crushed it back into nothingness. Our own ship, the Ghost, was torn apart by the feedback loop. The forward half of our vessel was simply gone, vaporized. The rear section, where we were strapped in, was a mangled wreck, tumbling through the violent, liquid hydrogen. Emergency lights flickered, casting the cockpit in a bloody, strobing crimson. Hull integrity is a theoretical concept at this point, Anya yelled over the cacophony of alarms, her voice tight but miraculously steady. "We're dead in the water, not yet. We're not. I roared, unstrapping myself. The ship's internal gravity was failing, and I half floated, half crawled towards the cockpit's viewport. The remaining two Echo ships, stunned by the sudden, violent demise of their leader, were regrouping. We had seconds. The Damocles loomed before us, its black, silent hull the only sanctuary in this swirling hell. "Get us into it," Rostova ordered, her military training cutting through the chaos. "Ram it! We'll cut our way out. I didn't need to be told twice." I used the last of our maneuvering thrusters to send our crippled vessel on a final, lurching trajectory. The Ghost slammed into the Damocles with a bone-jarring groan of dying metal. Our collision was a gnat hitting a mountain, but it was enough. We had breached our own hull against theirs, creating a jagged, impromptu airlock. Vorel, the silent marine, was a force of nature. He used a plasma cutter to shear away the last of the twisted metal, creating a stable opening. One by one, we crawled from the wreckage of our stealth ship into the ancient, silent darkness of the firstborn world engine. The moment my boots touched the deck, a low hum resonated through the structure, and soft, golden emergency lights flickered to life, illuminating a corridor identical to the ones on the Ethelgard. The Damocles knew its master's kin had arrived. "They're right behind us," Yorick whispered, his face pale, his eyes darting nervously back towards the breach. "The other two ships, they're latching on. They're going to board." We had no time to lose. We moved as a single unit, a desperate fusion of purpose. Rostova and Vorel took point, rifles at the ready. Anya, her datapad already glowing, was scanning the ship's systems, searching for the bridge. Yorick was our compass, his psychic senses guiding us through the labyrinthine corridors. "This way," he'd murmur, pointing down a hallway that felt colder than the others. "There's a psychic resonance, a trap." The Echoes had been at this for a while. Their psychic probes had left behind faint, malicious triggers in the ship's dormant systems, like landmines for the mind. Yorick navigated us around them, his brow beaded with sweat from the strain. We finally reached the bridge. It was a mirror of the Ethelgard's, a vast, dark cathedral with a single command throne at its heart. But unlike the Ethelgard, this throne was not empty. A shimmering, purple energy field crackled around it, a psychic cage. And within it, a figure was taking shape, a coalescing phantom of pure mental energy. The Overmind. It had anticipated our goal. It had laid its final trap not in the corridors, but at the very heart of our objective. So, the little ape has come for the second key. The voice echoed in our minds. No longer a whisper, but a roar of absolute power. "You are persistent. I will grant you that. But your journey ends here." Rostova and Vorel opened fire, their pulse rifles sending searing bolts of energy into the psychic manifestation. The bolts passed through it as if it were smoke, having no effect. Anya's fingers flew across her datapad, trying to find a frequency that could disrupt the field, but it was no use. This wasn't technology, it was raw, focused will. "It's me it wants," I said, my voice grim. I could feel it pulling at me, trying to rip the knowledge of the throne from my mind. Yorick cried out, clutching his head as the psychic pressure became overwhelming. He was out of his league, a candle in a hurricane. I was the only one who could face this. I walked forward, towards the throne, my every step feeling like I was wading through molasses. "Yes," the Overmind purred in my head. "Come, claim your prize. Let us see whose will is stronger, the heir of the builders, or the heir of the true vision." As I pushed through the psychic barrier, my world went white. I was no longer on the bridge. I was adrift in a silent, starless void, facing a colossal, multifaceted eye of purple light, the Overmind's true form in the psychic substrate. It showed me visions of its crusade galaxies cleansed, species brought into its silent, unified harmony, a universe of perfect, sterile order. It showed me humanity's future under its rule, a swift painless absorption. Our chaotic, violent nature finally soothed into the stillness of the collective. It was not an offer of subjugation, it was an offer of salvation, the ultimate temptation. For a fleeting moment, I felt the appeal of it, an end to struggle, to pain, to fear. But then, I felt my own memories rise to meet the vision, the grimy, vibrant chaos of Meridian Station, the taste of cheap synth ale in a crowded bar, the loyalty in Rostova's eyes, the cynical wit in Anya's, the terrified courage in Yorick's, the feeling of the rust bucket's controls under my hands. It was all messy, illogical, and imperfect. And it was everything. We are not pure. I threw back at the entity, my own thoughts a desperate, defiant shout in the void. We are flawed. We break. We rage. And we build things you could never understand. You think this power is a weapon for unmaking, but you're wrong. It's a tool. And you've forgotten how to create. I felt a surge of energy, not from me, but through me. The Damocles, the Ethelgard, the very legacy of the Firstborn was channeling itself into my will. I wasn't just a junker anymore. I was an inheritor, and I was claiming my birthright. The Overmind's perfect, orderly vision fractured. I pushed forward, not to destroy it, but to get past it. I reached for the throne that I could no longer see but could feel, the seat of command. My mind broke through the Overmind's final defense, and I slammed down into the command throne. Back in the physical world, the purple phantom shrieked and dissolved. I slumped into the throne, my body trembling, a thin line of blood trickling from my nose. But I was in. The Damocles was mine. On the view screen, the reality of our situation came crashing back. The remaining echo ships were firing relentlessly, and beyond them, the sleek, silver form of the Stellarch's gaze had arrived, its weapon ports glowing as it prepared to neutralize the entire anomalous situation. Thorn's diversion was over. We were caught between the hammer and the anvil. Kalen. We need a way out of here. Now, Rostova's voice snapped me back to the present. The Overmind was gone from the bridge, but I could feel its rage, a psychic storm brewing outside. It would not accept this defeat. They would destroy the Damocles rather than let us have it. The Assembly, in its ignorance, would help them. We couldn't fight them both, but I had the power of a world engine at my command. The Junker's instinct, the drive to see a tool's true potential, took over. Get back to the ship, I ordered, my voice resonating with the hum of the ZPE drive. Take the core, Kalen. There's no time, Anya yelled. We're not taking the core, I said, a wild, impossible idea blooming in my mind. We're taking the whole damn ship. My hands flew across the holographic interface, which felt as natural as my own skin. I wasn't just firing a weapon. I was accessing the primary function of the Damocles. I plunged the ship's senses deep into the heart of the gas giant Kalidor, into its impossibly dense core. I found the delicate balance of pressure and fusion that kept the planet stable, and with the gentle, slow, precise touch of a god, I pushed. I wasn't unmaking. I was building. I was igniting a star. A tremor ran through the entire planet. On the view screen, the roiling clouds of the gas giant began to glow from within, a soft, golden light that swiftly grew into a blinding, ferocious glare. The assembly and echo ships, caught completely by surprise, scattered in panic. Warning stellar ignition event imminent. The Damocles AI announced calmly, "We had moments." I wrapped the Damocles in a bubble of warped space-time and gunned the engines, punching our way out of the dying planet's atmosphere just as its core went critical. Behind us, Kalidor, the gas giant, erupted into a newborn sun, a wave of pure energy and light. The birth cry of a star washed over the system, blinding sensors and forcing both fleets into emergency FTL jumps. In the aftermath, in the serene glow of the new star, the Damocles drifted, silent and victorious. We had survived. We had won. We returned to the Chthonian Nebula not as fugitives in a stolen stealth ship, but as the masters of a second world engine. The Confederacy fleet greeted our arrival with stunned silence. We now possess 2 of the 3 pieces of the ultimate cosmic power. The news of a new star being born in Cygnus X1, an event the Assembly was desperately trying to explain away as a natural phenomenon, sent a shockwave through the galactic community. Humanity was no longer a minor player begging for scraps. We were a force to be reckoned with, a civilization that could forge suns. On the bridge of the Ethelgard, with the Damocles floating beside it like a sister ship, I looked out at the faces of my crew: Rostova, Thorn, Anya, Jorik, Vorl. We were an impossible collection of misfits: a junker, a soldier, a politician, a slicer, a psychic, a marine. We were humanity in all our chaotic, flawed, and stubborn glory. The echoes were still out there. The Assembly was now terrified of us. The war was far from over, but something had fundamentally changed. We were no longer just surviving. We were building. I was no longer a junker who had found a ghost. I was a guardian of a legacy, and we were about to begin the great work anew. The galaxy had thought us primitives in a cage. Now they would learn that the children of Earth carried the fire of the stars in their hands.